If I told you a few years ago that Audi would do a big estate with nearly 400 brake horsepower and rear-wheel drive, you would probably tell me to go and find my flying pig. But here we are with the Audi A6 E-Tron. Now this, of course, is based on the same PPE platform as the Audi Q6 e-tron SUV. It's available with two different battery sizes, so you can get a 76 kilowatt hour or a 95 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for a range of 366 miles in the smaller battery or up to 463 miles in the big battery. So that really is an impressive range. We've got the Avant Estate version here. You can get it as the Sportback. It really is an interesting prospect. It's got proper high-tech and 800 volt charging, so super rapid charging. It's here to take on the BMW i5 and the Mercedes EQE. Let's find out what it's like. Prices start at just over £64,000 for the A6 Avant, or closer to £72,000 if you want the big battery, rear-wheel drive A6 e-tron performance that we have here. The Quattro, which gets usefully more power as well as four-wheel drive, is closer to £80,000. So what do you think of the way it looks? I rather like the beige, I think, on this car. I think this car is pretty handsome from the front. It's definitely quite kind of distinctive. So Audi have got most of its kind of cameras and radars and this kind of stuff all in this black panel, so you can't really see those, and that works really well. And it's also got these extremely fancy lights, so you can choose your different light patterns and this kind of thing. I think it looks a little bit fussy at the front. I really like the look of the back at the Avant particularly. So if you go down here, you get this kind of blade down the side. So, you know, it's a good looking car. You get charging ports on both sides of the A6 as well, which is really good because, you know, if you've got an awkward driveway that you park on, being able to plug in either side with the Type 2 charger is really good. Check this out. Illuminated Audi badge here. You see this? Audi's very proud of that. And that is what it will be like on the road as well. That's all sorted. So I think it looks really nice when it's illuminated, but the problem is when it's not, I think it looks perhaps a bit tacky. I kind of prefer just a nice, classy badge. But at night, when it's illuminated, it looks really cool. And I get the light bar, very fancy. Anyway, this is the Avant, so it's going to be really practical, right? Well, I've got my cabin bag here, so you can see roughly what size the boot is. It's not bad, 502 litres, but I would add the BMW i5 has a bigger boot. So does the Volkswagen ID.7 Tourer. So there is that. So I do think Audi could perhaps have managed that. But I would add, a lot of that space is lost in the height because this is quite a sloped rear window. It's actually quite a massive boot floor, so I don't think that's too bad. You do get a little bit of space under there. Don't know if you can see under there. Perhaps more importantly, you do get a frunk as well. So you get a little frunk there, which will be good for a single cable, something like that. And you can also fold those rear seats from the back here with these like that. So that's good, isn't it? So it is practical, but I do think that some people might be a bit disappointed with the boot size. I think it's going to do the job. Space in the rear seats is very good, although the floor is quite high, so very long-legged rear passengers might feel their knees are bent up uncomfortably. Nonetheless, you do get loads of headroom, a centre rear armrest, and even blinds on the windows to keep the kids happy. So I am going to talk about how the A6 e-tron Avant drives in just a second, but first, the screen. So every A6 gets this beautiful single-piece curved screen, and it's really good. So the OLED screen, the graphics are fabulous, really good, really crisp, even in bright light you can see them, and the size of this nav map that you get up here is huge, so really good. But I do have a few quibbles with the interface. I think for a start, this driver readout behind the wheel, there are different views, so you can toggle through the different readouts, but there's not one that I think simplifies it enough. It can just get very busy, all the info behind there. Even on the sort of simplest one, I would still like it to just be a little bit more kind of straightforward. It's not too bad. But yeah, most of the views, you have this massive cluster of all this information. It's a bit too much. The actual interface on the touchscreen, not bad, but it definitely takes getting used to. I actually do find the BMWs a little bit easier to get used to. I just think there's aspects of this that take a bit of, there's quite a lot of shortcut buttons, you've got to figure out what they all do, but it's not too bad. And I really like things like on the nav, you know, there's a big old button up there, really nice big icon to turn the nav voice instructions off. That's always a go-to for me. I hate having voice commands on a nav, so I like to be able to turn them off easily and back on if I need them. There is a physical button down here to bring up a shortcut to the driver assist systems, which I like. That's a good thing. So yeah, I think actually not bad. The haptic buttons on the steering wheel can be a little bit annoying, but they don't respond too easily. So you don't tend to sort of accidentally activate things that you don't mean to. Generally looks brilliant. You can even have a passenger touchscreen, quite a big touchscreen over there, which I think is completely unnecessary, but you can have it if you want it. It looks very techy and modern and cool. I actually think that, if I'm honest, I think the interior in the BMW feels a little bit nicer in terms of its perceived quality. Sorry, Audi. It's not on this car actually, but you can get the A6 with this fabulous panoramic roof. You can shade it in kind of different little sections, and it's very cool. It's very good. So I think a lot of people will go for that. That's optional on every A6. Anyway, what's it like to drive? So we're obviously in this A6 Avant E-Tron Performance, which is the big battery, rear-wheel drive, kind of a mid-spec model basically. So this particular car in S-Line trim is about £75,000. I think this is going to be one of the biggest sellers. We do love an S-Line model in the UK. Now, a big caveat here, the cars I've driven out in Tenerife on this lovely launch, really cool roads around here. This road is, by Tenerife standards, incredibly straight. So, been on a lot of mountain roads. These test cars have all got air suspension. Frustratingly, in the UK, we are not going to get air suspension. So that's not ideal, is it? Because I have not driven an A6, which is representative of exactly what you're going to get in the UK. So in the UK, we're going to get passive coil springs, and these cars out here are all on the optional adaptive air suspension that you can get on European cars. And now, I find it frustrating that the reason Audi is not offering it in the UK is apparently because there hasn't been demand for it historically on previous Audi models. So I get it. I mean, it's a financial decision. Why pay to offer it on right-hand drive cars when people aren't buying it? Fine, just annoys me that people don't buy it, because I tend to think it improves the cars quite a lot, and I think on our roads the air suspension on this A6 would be really good, because it works really well out here. It's got really nice kind of body control. You do get quite a lot of lean, you notice it. It's not a lightweight car, it's about 2.3 tonnes with this big battery, so you do notice that, but it's still well controlled enough, really nicely damped. Hey, we'll have to wait and see how it manages in the UK on its passive springs, the A6. So yeah, watch this space for news on that. So performance, absolutely, I think, pretty ideal for this size of car. So you can get the A6, you can get the S6, so you get the real top spec one, which only comes in the top Edition 1 trim with everything that you could possibly want on it. But that's like nearly £100,000. 0 to 62 in under 4 seconds for the S6, so you do get the performance, but I don't think you need it really in this car. This rear-wheel drive, 375 brake horsepower E-Tron Performance is kind of a sweet spot in terms of price and performance, and it just feels right, because it's not explosively fast, but it feels really gutsy. And I think on UK roads this is more than enough pace, or will be more than enough pace. I think it's got a really nice, quite gradual, almost kind of petrol engine-like sort of power delivery, and I think Audi are doing that deliberately. I've noticed it with a lot of electric cars recently, that I think manufacturers are starting to back off that kind of like shocking, massive surge of torque and performance that electric cars can deliver, and give it a bit more of a subtle, easier to modulate kind of delivery, and that's good. So the e-tron's really lovely on that front. Steering, not the most tactile I've ever experienced, but really confident, really nicely weighted. It's quite light actually in the standard sort of comfort mode, and then you can toggle through your dynamic modes, makes it much heavier, but it's nice. The whole car just feels, it gels really nicely. I think it drives it's really lovely. Brake regen, so the A6 e-tron, you get 2 manual levels that you can toggle through, so you can make it quite heavy, and you've even got a 1 pedal mode, which I have been playing about with in town. That's not bad either, I have to say. It's all bleeds in really nicely. You have got an adaptive mode if you want it as well, where it senses the car in front and even junctions and that kind of thing, and responds automatically. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think being able to toggle through the 2 chief modes, you can turn it off completely and just let the car freewheel as well. Being able to do all that on the wheel, I really like that. I think it gives you a bit more flexibility. So yeah, I do like the brake pedal feel is really good, and the brake regen works very well in the A6. I think they've judged that really well. As for real world range, well, I saw around 310 miles to a charge from the performance model, but that was largely on demanding mountain roads, so I would expect to see more like around about 350 miles in the summer in more everyday use, while that will drop to more like 300 miles in the winter. So, what do I think of the Audi A6 e-tron? I really, really like it. I really like the way it drives. I'm a little bit not sold on the looks of it, but I think more to the point, the fact that it has a much longer range than a BMW i5, I think that's going to sell it to a lot of people. So it does actually seem like reasonable value in context of its rivals. I appreciate it's not a cheap car. Drives nicely, the tech is really good, really super ultra rapid charging. I think this is going to be a really popular car. I actually prefer the i5's interior, and I do think there are other more practical electric estates out there, but for what the Audi is offering, I think this is going to be a winner. Don't forget to head to CarGurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars, some really good used estates as well. And you know what to do. I tell you this all the time. Go on, like, subscribe, all of that.